Well, a very warm welcome along to our weekend review of the Premier League action. Well, another fantastic weekend of English top-flight action it has been. I'm Jack Ogalbe, joined by Bobbie Jackson. We're going to take you through our three talking points. First of all, where to start at the London Stadium. Jose Mourinho, first game in charge of Tottenham, a 3-2 win at West Ham. His side are 10th in the table, 9 points off the top four. That has got to be their goal for the rest of the season. It
has. Mourinho's come in to try and win silverware, I think, hasn't he? He's come to try and take the club to that next level. They've been a top four side consistently under Mauricio Pochettino, barring his first campaign when they finished fifth. But since then, he's had them in those Champions League places. So I think that's the minimum for Mourinho. It's a big ask. They're way behind, as you say, 9 points to make up. You look at the likes of Chelsea, Leicester, City and Liverpool. You wonder how they're going to drop that many points to invite Tottenham in. It might come to those games where they play against the sides in the top four. But it was a great start for them. They probably should have won a little bit more comfortably than 3-2 against West Ham. There'll certainly be areas he wants to improve upon defensively. Minor errors that allowed West Ham in to snatch a couple of goals. But Mourinho, a serial winner, isn't he? And I think we can be pretty sure they're going to be up there or thereabouts. We speak about 9 points to the top four. It's actually only a couple of points, really, up until the top five. So I think you're looking at that Europa League spot. Once they get themselves in there, then they can start to think about pushing on further. Yeah, well, 12-5 for a top four finish for Tottenham. They played Bournemouth at the weekend and 4-11 to win. We'll start with one Portuguese manager who's, I suppose, beginning a new reign. We've got another Portuguese manager who could be on the way out. Everton's Marco Silva is the 1-2 favourite to be the next Premier League manager to be sacked. His side lost 2-0 at home to Norwich at the weekend, and there were the usual calls of "you'll be sacked in the morning." It's not happened quite yet, but Norwich hadn't won since September. And by all accounts, Everton were woeful, and it looks like he's lost the dressing room. Yeah, they weren't playing for him whatsoever. I mean, at 2-0 down, he made a change at right back. He took off Sidibe and brought on Coleman. Sidibe was having a tough time, but you still feel you're 2-0 down, bring some strikers on, try and get some goals. It didn't work for them. They've been terrible. They did steady the ship a little bit prior to the international break. They had just one loss in four. Fair enough, there was only one win in that run, but they weren't losing as many games as they had been previously. But to then go and lose to Norwich again, they had to win on home soil. It's just not good enough. And there's other managers out there at the moment. I mean, Mauricio Pochettino's one. It would take a lot to get him into the club, I think, would be a great find for them. But there's others. Mikel Arteta has been mentioned. Eddie Howe is another. David Moyes is leading the market. I'm not quite sure he's the right man. As much as it's great, the memories, bringing him back to the club, the reunion, you always say, don't go back, don't you? And I think it would be a bit of a mistake for me. And maybe even show lack of ambition. They've been there, he's done that job. Look to someone new to come in and do it. I think they need to make this decision for me sooner rather than later. They've got a tough run of fixtures coming up as well. Just 4 points above the relegation zone. They take on Leicester, Liverpool, Chelsea, United and Arsenal as their next games. I'm wondering where that next point's coming from. Yeah, and I think maybe the argument from the board is they'll keep Silva in charge for that run of games and then appoint his successor when the easier games come along. Moyes is currently the 1-2 favourite to take over. I'm with you, Bobby. I think it'd be a mistake to bring him back. Eddie Howe 7-2, Mikel Arteta 12-1. Although the word coming out of Manchester City seems that Arteta will not be allowed to leave before the end of the campaign. Finally, we look at Sheffield United. They played in the game of the weekend, really, a 3-3 draw at home to Manchester United. They were 2 goals to the good and then got a late equaliser after a poor 10-minute spell. But 6th in the table, 14-1 for a top 6 finish, Bobby. And I'm not entirely sure they will manage that, but I think top 10's got to be a given pretty much now. Yeah, I mean, they would have come up this season with the ambition of let's not get relegated. They've got 18 points on the board. They're almost halfway to that magical 40-point mark. And as much as from the outside in the media, they'll be talking about top 10 and maybe even a run towards European places. Wilder's main aim at the moment will be, let's hit that 40 points and then we'll see where we go from there. I think that's the sensible thing to do. For me, I wasn't sure about them when they first came up because they didn't sign any big-name players, if you like. They were bringing in players from Championship football and you thought, they're not really committing to this Premier League campaign. But you know what? They've gelled so well. They brought in Lys Mousset, who's been fantastic for them. He was probably the only Premier League experienced player player that they brought in over the summer. He's been scoring goals, assisting. You've got the midfielders, the defence, they're so solid. And I just like the way that Wilder keeps consistent with his 11. Midfield, defence are always the same unless there's injuries. It's just the front two that he seems to rotate depending on who they're playing. But he's starting to even settle on Mousse more than others now in that forward line. I think they're such a solid side defensively, third best defensive record in the league. They're scoring goals as well. And 3 against Manchester United, they probably should have won that match. I felt a little bit sorry for them that they weren't able to get a win, a draw in the end, coming back from 3-2 down, having been 2-0 up to get a point. But yeah, for me, I think probably mid-table would be where they'd go this season unless there's some dramatic fall-off.
Yeah, absolutely. Wilder, incidentally, has been linked with both Everton and West Ham, whose boss, Manuel Pellegrini, is also in a bit of bother, but it just looks like a perfect combination, a bit like Bournemouth have had with Eddie Howe over the years. It just looks like a match made in heaven. I think he'll be staying put. Anyway, thanks for joining us. From myself, Jack and Bobby, we've enjoyed it. Follow us on the social media channels and don't forget to hit that subscribe button on YouTube.